Hello students, good morning. In the previous lesson, we have covered the topics like causes of French Revolution, collapse of Bastille prison, establishment of National Assembly, and how France became constitutional monarchy. Now in this lesson, we proceed further with a chapter covering the topics of revolutionary wars, France became republic, and reign of terror. Students, listen all the explanation carefully and then only you will be able to answer all the questions given at the end of the PPT as worksheet. Okay? Revolutionary Wars. The situation in France continued to be tense during the following years. Although King Louis XVI had signed the constitution, but still he entered into secret negotiations with the King of Prussia and Austria. Why so? Because he was not satisfied with the practice of constitutional monarchy, because that system actually snatched all the powers from monarch and handed over to the constitution, right? So he entered into secret negotiations with the King of Prussia and Austria to send troops to put down the events that had been taking place in France. But before this could happen, the National Assembly in April 1792 declared war against Prussia and Austria because somehow they gathered this information that combined troops of Prussia and Austria are going to attack them. So before they could attack National Assembly, the troops under National Assembly, they first attacked on the troops of Prussia and Austria. Now, this was the time when French army sang Marseillaise. This was a patriotic song sung by the people of French army. The revolutionary wars again brought losses and economic difficulties to the people because wars always carry losses, economic losses, social losses. So this time also the revolutionary wars gained a lot of economic losses to the common people of France. In the previous slide, as I told you about the wars in which men with large troops were engaged. So, while the men were away fighting at the front, women were left to cope with the task of earning a living and looking after their families. That was the first reason for raising the revolutionary ideas. Then, large sections of the people among the French population were convinced that the revolution had to be carried further. That means the French Revolution has not ended yet. So, as the Constitution as of 1791 actually gave political rights only to the richer sections of society. If you remember, who was having the voting rights in the National Assembly? Only the people who were paying taxes. That means the richer sections, the big industrialists or businessmen, etc. So actually, they left weaker sections of the society without having their any say in the National Assembly, right? Now, next point was the political clubs. They have become an important rallying point, a meeting point actually for people who wish to discuss government policies. People gathered in some of the political clubs and they began discussing about the government policies. Now, among the most successful of these clubs was that of the Jacobians under the leadership of Maximilien Robespierre, which got its name from the former saint of Saint Jacob in Paris. Now we'll study further about Maximilien Robespierre and his policies in detail in the next slide. So now here in this topic, we will be going to understand that how France became a republic after overthrowing the practice of constitutional monarchy. So now students, on 10th August 1972, the Jacobins, the most famous political club in France, as I told you earlier, the Jacobins stormed the palace of Tuileries, massacred the king's guard, and held the king himself as hostage and later imprisoned by assembly. Now elections held in France, and in those elections, all men of 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. Why I am mentioning here regardless of wealth? Because in the previous practice of National Assembly, only the taxpayers got the right to vote. And this Jacobean club, the people of Jacobean club, they were actually the people of weaker sections. So they actually granted right to vote to all the people of the community regardless of wealth. That was their main aim actually. So in the following actions, as I told you, all men of 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. The Jacobeans won the elections under the leadership of Maximilian Robespierre. On 21st September 1792, Assembly abolished the monarchy. That was their main aim, to abolish the monarchy, and declared France a republic under Robespierre, and renamed Assembly as Convention. On 21st January 1793, Louis XVI was guillotined publicly. Now, what was the practice of guillotine, students? I will explain you later. Now, here you just remember that on 21 January 1793, King Louis XVI was guillotined on the charge of treason. And his wife, Queen Mary Antoinette, met with the same fate, same result shortly after. So students, from the previous slide, we understood that France became republic under the leadership of Maximilian Robespierre. Now further we are going to study that how Maximilian Robespierre was ruling France and what was his practices and policies to rule over his countrymen. So let's begin. First point, Robespierre's government issued laws placing a maximum ceiling on wages, and he rationed meat as well. Meat was their prime product of food, so he rationed it. It means he just catch hold, he put a catch hold that how much meat or how much flour, the bread and butter, the bread and flour, each family should get. He was the whole only person who was deciding all these things. Peasants were forced to transport their grain to the cities and sell it at prices fixed by the government. That means peasants were not having any of their catch hold to decide the prices of their own product, right? Expensive white flour was banned, and all citizens were required to eat the bread made up of whole wheat only. Irrespective of the fact that how much a person is wealthy, he has to eat the bread made up of whole wheat only. Equality was also sought during Robespierre's time to be practiced through forms of speech and addresses. For example, instead of the traditional sir and madame, all French men and women were henceforth now called as citoyen and citoyenne. Right. Now, churches were also shut down and their buildings were converted into barracks or offices. So, students, from above explained points, you must understood that Robespierre was in hold of the government, which was republic, but by name only, because he was no less than a dictator himself. So, let's see what he did and what happened to him. The period from 1793 to 1794 in French history is referred to as a reign of terror. Now, why it was so, students, I will explain you with the next slide only. So, students, let's see why the period from 1793 to 1794 was referred as the reign of terror, right? Ex-nobles, clergy, member of other political parties, even members of his own party. Here I'm denoting to Maximilian Robespierre. Okay, his own party, who did not agree with the Robespierre's methods. Robespierre methods were those methods which I told you in the previous slides. The policies, the restrictions he actually imposed on his own people. So who do not agree with Robespierre's methods were arrested. Even the members of his own political party also. They were imprisoned and then tried by a revolutionary tribunal. And if they found guilty, it means if they found in a condition of fault, they were guillotined. Now students, as you can see in the picture, the guillotine was a device consisting of two poles and a blade with which a person is beheaded. This device was named after Dr. Guillotine, who invented it. So Robespierre was actually very harsh and cruel with the method of his punishment. Robespierre pursued his policy so relentlessly, he never listened. He actually did not want to listen anybody, even not even the members of his own political party. So he pursued his policies so relentlessly that even his own supporters began to demand moderation. Now, moderation means change. So now people demanded change. Although they were living in a society which was named as republic, but there was nothing like the policies of a republic society. Robespierre actually he actually following all his policies and programs and rules and regulations like a dictator only. So finally Robespierre was convicted by a court in July 1794, arrested. He got arrested, and on the next day, he also met the same fate. He was guillotined. Students, now you have to do these questions from the topic I explained you. For any queries, you are always free to ask. We will end this chapter with the last video. Till then, take care, stay at home. Bye bye.